Were you an Ozzy Osbourne or Black Sabbath guy, Glenn?
Yeah, I have to say, full transparency, that I wasn't a big fan of the music, but I was listening to, in my younger days, Michael Jackson and Motown, all the Motown stuff, and then that transitioned into country music, which I love now. So I really didn't get into that, but I promise you I wouldn't walk across a restaurant to tell you I don't like it. I'll do that. I'll tell you that right now. So if you loved that type of music, then I'm more than with you. But the character that was Ozzy Osbourne and Sharon as well. Like, I used to watch those TV clips, and Ozzy would just be like talking about whatever it was. It could even have been like a household chore or something. And the looks that Sharon used to give him, and it used to crack me up to think how this couple has learned to communicate. Because
Yeah.
it was just, what a character.
She put in some long hours living and spending time with Ozzy for sure. So when you said I grew up listening to Michael and you kind of took that pause there, I wasn't know what Michael you were going to go after. For a second, I was going to say, is he going to say Bolton? And then it was like W. Smith, maybe Flatley, maybe you're a Riverdance guy. I don't know, but you went with Michael Jackson, who I was a massive fan of. See, I said to Colson this earlier in hour one. Not that I didn't like Ozzy. You're kind of exposed to him, or I was, in that late 80s playing hockey, right? The guys start bringing in the ghetto blaster into the room and playing tapes, and you go to hockey game. You go to an old Blades game or Pats game back in the day, and you would hear it. So that's kind of where I got exposed to it, because my dad, I was the afterthought. So my dad, there was a lot of Charlie Pride, Kenny Rogers, Don Williams, that stuff. So it's like I didn't have, and then my brother was more like you. He was more into the lighter side, the Eagles, stuff. Yeah. But you look and I think Crazy Train, like Ozzy Crazy Train's got to be one of the top 5 sport anthems.
Right.
Of all time, how that starts, like a kickoff for a football game or an entrance for a hockey team, anything like that in the Black Sabbath thing. So there's a lot of people I know down the hallway on the Wolf. They're doing like a tribute to Ozzy and Black Sabbath right now. But you're here to talk football and our Riders in British Columbia last weekend. Let's start with, first off, we taught the out physicaled, and that was the buzz kind of term last week when we played Calgary. The Riders on Saturday, they seemed to bully BC around, and then when I woke up Sunday, I was like, that was the score, because it felt like the Riders, had the spread by 18 points at least.
Yeah, agreed. That the notes were taken from Coach Mace from the Calgary game to the BC game, that in order to win, we have to be more physical, because they clearly were. And before we go any further, I know everybody has probably said this, but for Kadeem Carey, I just hope the best for him, and that he can, recover from this. And, when he didn't want to take the card off, I had just such a sort of a sinking feeling, and I'm sure there was a lot of people that have been really involved with the game that were even a little emotional, because he's such a warrior and a guy that puts it all on the line for his teammates, and you just hope that that's not it, because of where he is in his career. But so I hope for a speedy recovery there. But the Riders were more physical in Vancouver. When you are in the Canadian Football League and you don't punt the ball until into the fourth quarter, you are dominating the game. You are your line of scrimmage. You're commanding the line of scrimmage. You're dominating the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, but certainly on offense. And when you do that, and you have a quarterback like Trevor Harris, who I think, I don't know that this is a stretch to say, but I think he's playing his best ball, the best ball of his career. And he has had some great runs. I mean, his time in Ottawa, he had some great seasons. And but I just think he is finding the open guy. He is finding the right read. It just looks like it's effortless for him to figure that out. And then you start dominating the line of scrimmage, and you don't have to punt the ball at all. If you have a bust in the coverage like we're watching on the stream right now, it's over. He'll find it. I mean, there's a lot of quarterbacks, younger quarterbacks, you could bust 2 or 3 coverages in a game, but they don't find it. They're looking at other things or looking at the rush or whatever, and they don't see the guy that's wide open and behind everybody. So, if you do it against Trevor, he's going to beat you. And I know we've talked, and I mentioned the injury to Kadeem, but we've talked about injuries early in the season. And Barney, if there's a silver lining in injuries in our game, it's that the young guys get a chance to play when the veteran is hurt or the guy who's made the team is hurt. So, for instance, without Sam Emlis going down and without Schaefer Baker going down for a bit, we don't know what Robustelli can do. But now we know that Robustelli can be a 1,000-yard receiver. He's got great upside potential because he's got a chance to get in there. He's got a chance to learn, sort of the nuance of Trevor Harris. And he's a playmaker. And then Sam Emlis comes back and he starts to, he's still in game 1 in his return, and he'll get back into his groove again, but didn't play badly. In fact, had a few nice catches in the game. But that's the upside. If there is a silver lining and a guy getting hurt, you'll get him back later in the year, hopefully. And in the meantime, you might discover Damian Alford or Joe Robustelli or whomever's coming up through the ranks and has been sitting on a practice roster.
Quarterbacks, we had this yesterday. I'm curious to get your take. And I know you don't like to make predictions. But if you had to rank right now quarterbacks in the CFL, or where would you put them? Would it be VA then Harris a close second?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Okay, we're gonna work this out. We're gonna work this out because here's the guys that jump out right when you said it. VA, the start to Vernon Adams' year in Calgary, off the charts. Davis Alexander, although he missed 2 games, those 2 games he missed, and he's going to miss more now. But those 2 games he missed, they lost both. But Davis Alexander's in that discussion. Trevor for sure, as I just mentioned. Trevor Harris for sure, and Bo. I think Bo Levi Mitchell and Hamilton and that connection with Kenny Lawler is off the hook. So those 4 right there. How you sort those 4 out, I'd almost lean towards VA on the top right now, but you could almost list them across the board, not necessarily 1 through 4, but 1A, B, C, D, because Davis Alexander is such a tough SOP. Like he just guts out games. That's fun to watch. Trevor and is dissecting defenses. VA is gunslinging it, and so is Bo. And Bo has the, he's just that connection with Lawler. Lawler might, if he stays healthy, Lawler might break the record held by Stiegel for touchdowns in a season, because that's how hot those guys are.
Interesting comment there. What about hits on our quarterbacks? Zach, I don't know how many more times his head can hit the ground like that. Like, it's not a dirty hit by any means. It's just how it happens in football, and anyone that's worn a helmet, played hockey, football, whatever, what that feels like when your head goes back and hits that. And he's at it, and then after it doesn't look good again. He goes out. Strevler comes in. Calgary did an unreal job of containing Strevler and almost like taking. If I was watching it, Glenn, I'm like, he likes to look to the left. Then they're going to flush him right, and then they just snuffed it out there. But hits on the quarterbacks, and then you got the Drew Brown one. That one, you don't think he means to, and the guy's name escapes me, Amos or
Deshaun Amos. Yeah, Deshaun Amos. Yeah.
You don't think that he's going in to spear him in the head, because he's going in with such force. And we talked to Philip Daniels yesterday, the defensive line coach for the Riders. Like, how do you coach that? Like, that's so hard for a 300-pound man that's trained to hit people to still back. But the hits on the quarterbacks, do you have any thoughts? Do you just think it's one of those things? Because it is football.
Yeah, it is football, and they're going to get hit occasionally, especially if they're holding on to the ball for that extra second to wait for a receiver to clear, a zone or whatever it might be, to get in behind his guy. That hit on Drew Brown. I know on social media there's been some, it was dirty, this should have happened, that should have happened. Here's how I would sort of explain it from my perspective, just watching the evolution of protecting quarterbacks over the last 10 years and the efforts from the league to do that. And also understanding what you just talked about, Barney, which is how difficult it is to target in that section below the neck, but above the knees, and full speed and coming right at it. So for this hit, Deshaun Amos is not trying to hurt Drew Brown. He's not trying to knock him out. He didn't aim for his head. There was no malicious, in my mind anyway, there was no malicious intent in that hit. He was going full speed, had a sack on his mind and a big play defensively, and he followed through and he missed the target. He was too high. But having said that now, I'm not sure what the league will do. I know that they were talking about it, probably announcement either today or early tomorrow, as to whether or not there will be a fine or even a suspension to Deshaun Amos for that hit. I would suggest that be a little harder from the league office, even though there was no malicious intent. Be a little harder in the punishment end so that players take the extra time necessary, even if it's a split second, to make sure they don't do that, to make sure they do hit the target. Now, sometimes the quarterback ducks at the same time.
Oh,
sometimes
that's exactly it.
Yeah, sometimes you are being tripped as you're going in, or you're being half blocked as you're going in on a blitz, and then the target is messed up because you can't get there physically. So there's a lot of circumstance, but the league takes that into consideration when they're looking at supplemental discipline. They look at those things and they say, well, was he tripped, or what were the circumstances of the hit? That was a straight shot. He missed the target. So in order to send the strong message, a good fine that is not minimum, but a fine that makes the point, to me, would be fair, and say, this is a message to all other defenders. Well, we know there was no malicious intent with this hit. We just have to eliminate it. We just have to take it out, because there's no one more vulnerable than a quarterback looking down the field and taking a shot like that without being able to brace himself or lower his chin, to protect himself. And then the follow through on that is what happened to Zach when he hit the turf. Now, that was a clean hit, and it was in the target area. You can't really, change that outcome, because it's going to happen sometimes.
Yeah.
The good news is for Zach, what I'm hearing is that with their medical staff and their reports so far is that they don't think this is a concussion as of now. They were being precautionary, definitely in the game, but it looks like he won't have to miss too much time, which is great news.
I'd be shocked if it wasn't, especially with the issues he's had, but that's okay.
Yep.
Back to the game in BC, and Trevor talked about it post game, where he's like, they think this isn't verbatim, but how he's a short throwing quarterback. He kind of dinks and dunks and all that. And then he kind of mentioned how he can go over the top, and he's shown that. Robustelli 2 games ago, to the wide left. Last game, Myers right up the gut, post pattern, throwing it deep, looks good. I like it. There's almost like he's such a nice guy, and he's never going to say, the wrong thing or be controversial. but it's something you can tell. There's something there that he wants to prove to people that, yeah, I can get rid of it quick. I can dissect the defense, but hold the phones. I can sling it down the park.
Yeah. You sometimes wish that the really good guys in our game, and there's lots of them, would just say, you know what, when they get the question from the media, like you're just checking it down or dinking and dunking, and you're not throwing the ball deep and you can't anymore, that you just wish a guy would say, you know what, I'm going to send you some video. Go ahead and watch it because you're dead wrong, and I can make any throw on the field.
I like it.
I know that they won't, but you're right. I mean, he is taking where the defense is vulnerable, and then when he gets one-on-one matchups he likes, he trusts his receivers and he throws it up to him. There's a nice catch by Emelis on the feed, and that had a safety over the middle too, but there was trust there, and Emelis was in behind, and he can make those throws. So, like, I know what his age is. I know his injury history, as everyone does, but it's not affecting him. I think Trevor right now has more command of this offense than I've seen him in his career, and I've covered him all the way across, his entire career. And like I said, there's been some really good seasons, and I think he's seeing it, can make all the throws, is getting the protection to do so, and I think it can only improve. Now, they're going to have down times where they don't get some traction and they have to punt and things like that. Sooner or later, they're going to have to punt, even though BC didn't make it. But at the same time, by the way, that's my second game of the weekend is the Lions game, and I'm going to ask Mike Benavides, their defensive coordinator, what's wrong with your defense, man? Because you guys couldn't create a punt against Saskatchewan. But I know Mike, so he's okay with me being a little sarcastic. No, but to your point, Trevor can make those deep throws, and he's done it all season. So I don't know where these narratives get created. I really don't.
Here's a question I just thought of while you were talking about that. When's the last time you saw a really good fake punt?
Yeah, it's a great one because it's been a long time. And the other thing, the last time I saw a short yardage play where the quarterback faked it and then drops back and throws a deep post, and not on 2nd and 1. I'm talking about on 3rd and 1. And here's one for, and I bet you fans would be behind us on this. Let's hope that there's a whole bunch of offensive coordinators listening right now, and we say, take some chances, because if you get into a 3rd and 1 and you're always doing the same thing over and over and over again, at some point you're going to get stopped at a crucial moment. But if you even once or twice throw it, here's what happens. It's not just that play that could be a huge play where the fans are up out of their seats, but it's a game changer. It's a momentum swing, and it forces every team that you're going to face after that game to spend time in practice defending against the possibility of another throw. And that takes time out of their short yardage preparation. And you also have to spread out a little bit, and you've got linebackers that maybe aren't as quick to jump over the pile because they're saying, wait a minute, they might throw a crossing route here real quick. So,
I like it staying in regular short yardage formation. First off, to your point, and then after the game, to make people watch tape and waste time on tape, be like, we got a bunch of those plays that we're going to roll out over the weeks ahead, just to kind of plant that seed. But then you stay in regular formation, and like you said, it's the CFL, right? It's a parking lot out there. You can run a post pattern from the 1. That's why I love the CFL. You can't do that in the NFL or in college or in a small end zone game. So I like staying in regular formation, and then, hey, it's basically man on man. All you got to do is make sure the guy's just a sliver behind you, and then just throw that puppy up on the one-on-one for post. I like it, Glenn. If you and I'm going to bring you in to coach my flag team next year for 1 week, and we'll be gambling on everything. We'll be doing some dumb plays. Hey, Speaking of guys that can catch post patterns and catch everything, this Damian Alford character in Calgary, we saw him kind of torch us 2 weeks ago. And then last week in Winnipeg, again, what a game. First off, does he remind you of anyone in the last, let's say, 30 years in the CFL?
A little bit like Merv Fernandez.
Ooh, there's a throwback.
Former BC Lion. David Williams,
Mm-hmm.
a little after Fernandez. Again, another BC Lion. David Williams was a guy I played against, but was super tall, but could really run, like pick him up and put him down, run, especially at the top end when he wants to separate from people. I talked to Dave Dickinson today about Damian Alford because that's our first game on Thursday against Calgary, Montreal. And, I asked him, are you surprised by the production of Damian Alford, first round pick? It often or almost always takes draft picks at least a year to settle in and even become starters, let alone be this productive and really get people talking about him. I mean, this guy, I think we're scratching the surface, which is what Dave said too. And Coach Dickinson also admitted, I am a little bit surprised by his production, like the numbers, not his abilities, because you scout, do your homework there, but by his production, yes. I mean, for this being this young, and that VA trusts him like he would Reggie Bagleton.
So what games do you got this weekend?
So I'm leaving tomorrow for Calgary and Montreal, which is going to be a heck of a matchup, even without Davis Alexander, who is now on the 6th game. And then
trap game for the Stamps.
Yeah. Well, if they called it the gauntlet, I think is how Coach Dickinson talked about it. The gauntlet of games. They had Winnipeg twice, Saskatchewan, who was unbeaten, and now Montreal. And if I would have asked him 3 weeks ago, would you be happy with a 500 finish in those 4 games? I'm sure he would have said, I'll take it. I'll take it right now. Yeah. Let's go.
Yeah.
And now he's looking at a sweep. And all the teams that he's beaten were undefeated when they played him the first time. So, this is going to be a heck of a matchup. And then the BC game on Sunday. You got
the BC game on Sunday. So, I'll end with this because I know on Thursday, whenever we get a chance to catch up, we're going to tee up Riders and Elks. But the only question about that today I have, because it'll probably be announced by Thursday, who do you think starts for the Elks?
Well, right now they're taking half reps.
I know.
The first team reps. I think they're going to make a change. I don't know that it's fair. My biggest surprise this season of any team is the underachieving defense in Edmonton. Like the names on that defense are just too good and too big, and the resume too nice to be playing as poorly as they're playing. So I think that's the biggest story in Edmonton right now, and it's not Trey Ford that is the issue. However, they got to win. I mean, it's not Mark Killam's issue because he's brand new, but he's kind of carrying the last 3 years with him too. I mean, that
true.
They've got to. There's pressure on that team. They've got to figure something out. If they start him, I think we'll see Cody for sure. But I would not be surprised at all to see Cody start that game.
And you mentioned, the baggage from a few years and where they are and changes and all that. And then just how darn good the West is this year, or the West can be. And for Edmonton, it's like, well, how do we get above water here? In the East, I guess, there's still you got 2 teams with 1 win. But all right, travel safe to Calgary, and then we'll catch up on Thursday.
Thanks, Barney.
Go listen to some Ozzy. Go listen to some Black Sabbath.
You got it.
No, you're gonna listen to Michael. You're gonna listen to Michael Bolton now that I planted that seed. See you, Suits.
Okay, buddy.